Yeah, you're going to have to bear with me a second, ladies. It is the latest installment in the great saga that is America, the series. By now, I think we've probably all seen the images and the videos of thousands of Trump supporters storming the US Capitol building last week in a bid to prevent Congress from certifying Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. There were fights with law enforcement. There was destruction and theft of federal property, not to mention some deaths, very, very sadly. And despite all of this lawlessness continued for hours before what was a predominantly white mob was forcefully ejected from the building and basically told to go home. There weren't really very many arrests. And I guess the question on everybody's lips is what's going on, because this behavior and the response from law enforcement really lies in stark contrast to what we saw in the Black Lives Matter protests last summer. There was often unprovoked and violent and hostile treatment of Black people. And so that's got many of us in the community questioning whether this so-called unconscious bias in the police force is actually unconscious at all. And basically, it's reignited debates about white privilege in America. Now, Trump. Where do we begin with Trump? Lots of people are saying that Trump is responsible for this. Trump incited that insurrection in a speech that he gave to protesters earlier that day. And let's not forget that we've had 4 years of misinformation, divisive and inflammatory comments, not to mention some very, very shady behavior on his part. And Twitter have finally seen the light, along with a couple of other social media channels, and they have permanently suspended his account. But now, and this story is, I guess, unfolding. I see you there, Sophie. The story's unfolding, and Trump may actually become the first US president in history to face impeachment twice. So with all of this in the latest saga, and like I said, the story that we call America, what I want to know is this: why did it take a siege on a federal building for people to realize just how dangerous Trump and his narrative are? And to, I guess, even acknowledge that white privilege exists? And more importantly, how does America recover from this? How do they move forward? And how do we avoid ever seeing a fiasco like this again?
To be honest, Marisha, this is a lot. It's a lot. And I think the one thing that I would like to reiterate from what you said, the predominantly white mob. Now, I'm not saying that gives me joy, but what I'm saying is I don't understand why it took people this long. And the only thing that I can think of, I don't know why it took people this long to see racism in America. For some people wanting to be blind to it. The only thing that I can think why it took this long is because people didn't take him seriously. Like maybe they actually thought, no one takes him seriously. He's obviously a joke. And then it took the storming of the building to realize that actually there are people who are literally digesting the narrative that he is throwing out there every single day and on Fox News and what Republicans are saying. Like there are people who are taking what he's saying for the gospel. And those people aren't stupid. And I think that's where I think it becomes very difficult for Trump, because he was trying to say, oh, he didn't incite this rebellion, this insurrection. But when you spoke to the supporters, they were like, well, he said, go down there and fight and take your country back. To us, that meant go down. Like, I just feel these people aren't stupid. They understand what it is that he's saying. And I think that the reason why, I don't even know if everyone's seen this as white privilege, if I'm being honest. I'm just glad that it happened to a certain extent, not the people who have died, not the people who were scared and who felt their life was at risk. Just so that there is a very clear opposite as to what's going on with white America and Black America. Like never again is anybody going to hear where racism doesn't exist in America. It's because, you know, you were peacefully protesting. Well, there were some people who are out of line. Actually, no, you can be white in America and storm a federal building and go home and have dinner with your wife and never think about it again. That's the sort of place that you live in. And for America to move forward, I don't even know what that's going to take. I think definitely there needs to be consequences to what happened. People need to see that the law really is there for whoever breaks it, whoever dishonors it, or whatever it is that those people did. And I think also there needs to be bipartisan politics. the next person who comes in has to show, I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, I'm here for everybody and the policies are for everybody. Because what we saw with Trump is a set of policies that worked for one person and it left other people out in the cold. And some people felt either empowered by him or they felt scared of the America that he was creating. They need to now show that there is unity from the White House.
Yeah, I almost share the notion of I'm not sure what the steps are for them to stop something like this happening again. Of course, Trump being out of the White House would be a big step. However, Trump, I think, just really gave a voice to a lot of people that felt the same way as him in America. So for it to happen again, I do think it can happen. What could stop? I don't really know. Like, I think Marisha, you said it well when you said the latest installment in America, the series, because if I had never stepped foot in that country, no one could pay me and convince me that it's a real place. You just couldn't, because all the shenanigans I see on the news, I'm just like, this cannot be real. This absolutely cannot be real. So it always just like shocks me there. I think the reason why it took this long though for people to see kind of the privilege or the white privilege that people may have is because I think they were just choosing not to see the privilege. I think it was very easy to say, okay, yes, they're killing unarmed black people, but what did he do? What was his past? What was he like, etc., etc. So they used a lot of excuses, and I think this was the first time where they were challenged, because I feel like a lot of Americans, especially those who are Trump supporters, they are like super patriotic, right? It's all about their country and they've got this super pride, and so they would never want to go into the Capitol Hill, one of their buildings, and storm it and hurt people. So the fact that a bunch of people did that and then there were no repercussions and that all these people were white, I think it kind of woke people up and they were like, actually, sorry, there should be repercussions. Why aren't these people being charged? Why are they not being treated as criminals? Why are they being described in the media as patriots? And it was like the only reason, which was obvious to everybody else, why they weren't getting this sort of treatment was because obviously they were white. And I think at that point it was undeniable that this was white privilege. And I think it's not only just about black people. I think it's all people of color, because I think if it was a group of South Asian descendants who stormed the Capitol Hill, I think we'd be having a completely different conversation, as well as black people. So I think at that point it was so undeniable that the reason why they're getting away with it is because of the color of their skin, that it had to make everyone take a seat back and say, you know what, actually there is privilege. And it's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a bit bittersweet that people weren't listening to like minorities and other people who were saying, you guys have privilege, you guys have privilege. It took this for them to realise that when they should have been listening all along. So that's the disheartening bit.
It is disheartening, but I think that's sort of, like you say, it's really sad. People died, people were injured. It was very scary for people who were in that building when the siege took hold. But sometimes you need something that's that extreme to move people to a point where they can no longer deny stuff that is happening right in front of their eyes, even though I guess they choose not to see it. And I think for me, I don't think it's going to have resulted, like those people that stormed the building, not all of them, but a lot of them will still come away, think they didn't do anything wrong and don't see a problem with the way that they were treated by law enforcement. I don't think those people, which I think a lot of them are Trump's kind of core fan base, if you like, that subscribe to his kind of more extreme values, I don't think any of those people are going to be moved by this. I don't think any of them will see what happened as any form of mistreatment. It's just like, well, we were just, we were doing a protest. I think it's the people, I guess, in the middle, the people who have either just out of pure ignorance or willfully just kind of buried their head in the sand and said, I don't want to pretend or acknowledge that this is going on because it doesn't really directly affect me or the people directly around me, that can no longer be that sort of complicit in it. Because I think in many respects, if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. It doesn't mean that we need to see you out protesting and see you being the face of any kind of campaign for more equal treatment of everybody in the US, regardless of the color of their skin or across the world. But we just need you not to be silent when you see it and to kind of support efforts to try and move the needle. And I think those people now are sitting there, like it's not funny what happened, but some of the funnier, I guess, memes and videos and stuff that I've seen have come off of of like TikTok and Snapchat or whatever have actually mostly been made by white American citizens who are literally going, look at this. You can no longer tell me that white privilege doesn't exist. And one of them, I forget that, I don't actually know what his name is. He's the actor that was in, he's been in Friends, is when there was an episode where Phoebe had two boyfriends and one was a policeman. But he's literally there.
Oh, I know that guy.
Have
He's
you
like
seen
a thick
him?
Accent, like
Yeah,
a New Yorker
he's
kind of
got a
accent.
very
What's his
thick New York
name?
accent. I can't remember
Oh, I
his
know who
name.
you're talking about. Yeah,
But he made this brilliant video, and he's like, I assume from the video that he is he's Jewish by descent. He went in, he was like saying Yiddish words at them, like, this is what we call this. This is how ridiculous this is. How do you? He's like, I don't need you to tell me. I knew this was a problem, but you can no longer sit at home and pretend this isn't a problem. I think in terms of how America moves forward and avoids this, the bit that concerns me, or I guess the bit that makes me unsure about how we're going to proceed, is I feel like the US is kind of going between two extremes a lot of the time. So, you know, I watched Obama's inauguration and was like, if this man makes it through this and doesn't get shot, there's a hope here. Because I was convinced. I was like,
a lot of us were thinking that.
A
lot of us were thinking that.
There's no way. Like, okay, they voted him in. That was for the people that don't believe in this kind of thing. That was bad enough. They're actually going to let him take office. Fine, he's taken office. For him to then stay through office, not get shot, make it through a re-election and do his full 8 years was amazing and progressive. But I think when you see something that is that progressive, it shouldn't be progressive in 2021 now, but to some people it's progressive. It pushes all those people at the other extreme to start taking action and bringing their voice out. And I almost feel like that is because that is the reason that we've gone completely other way to a candidate that, let's face it, I said misinformation, mistruths, shady behavior, inflammatory and divisive comments. Like, that should never come from a sitting US president. It's bad enough when it comes from human beings that just out civilians doing their business, but from a sitting US president of one of the most powerful countries in the world. So I think, it's awful. And so you have that, and I think that some of that is a response, right? The man didn't have any political career, so to speak, of. He's not even particularly great businessman. He's gone bankrupt several times. So you have the people that are so vehemently opposed to something like Obama and what he represented, rising up and supporting someone who is at the other extreme in the form of Trump. And now we're almost going back, maybe somewhere in the middle, but back the other way, because we've got Biden here, and, you know, we've all seen the jokes played at Biden about how obviously his age is advancing and we don't know how long he's going to be around.
2024 Kamala? 2024.
Yeah, well, exactly. And like, is it actually a way to squirrel in Kamala? Let's have our first US female president from a minority background or highly melanated background. So but I think as a combination, that is probably the most progressive we're going to get for the time being. And I think the duality of the two of them working together, and I think the way that Biden came out and condemned what had happened, like unequivocally, they're all now that Trump is leaving, you know, Michelle Obama put a really poignant post together, and she came out and they were just like, you know, we need to just stop this, because nobody should really have that much power. That's in part of the reason why we have, you know, Congress and Parliament and stuff. Like, no single individual should have that. But Twitter banned Trump's account, and he just went on the official president of the US account and started tweeting from there. And I was just like,
you know, I think you just make such a good point, Marisha, about, because as much as I loathe what Trump has done in office, and I'm not even from the country, so this is as an outsider. As you said, Marisha, like, there are a group of people who feel that they found their voice in him. And I think when we're talking about how America moves forward, it's looking at all the people in the entire country. Because as you'll see in any election, and it happens here, I'm not singling out America, the votes that they go for are places either that they think they can win or they think is a swing state. If there's states that they don't think that they're going to get votes in, like, that's red, we're not going to get any votes, it's heavily Republican, they won't even really visit it, because basically it's a waste of time. But what we see here is that there are people who feel, as much as the white man to us may not be marginalized. In America, the white man in the deep south in some places who have had their industrial towns shut down, who don't have access to any types of work because all the industries that they used to work in have been shipped over to China, and now they're not able to kind of make things and bring things in. They feel disenfranchised. And it's about Biden coming in and really trying to think about everybody in the country, not just the ones who are going to be in the areas that are, more likely to vote for him next time. And I'm not saying that's what Biden wants to do, but I think it's so tricky when you have a country of 250 million trying to make policies that fit everybody, because somebody is always going to be, I don't want to say left out, but maybe get the short end of the stick. That's why Republicans that's why people like to vote Republican, because they're like, I'm going to get more tax breaks. And if I vote for the Democrats, well, they might be fairer in this sense, but I want to keep my money. It was like, well, I don't really believe in abortion, so let me go for the Republicans, but I know that they want to, kick out immigrants. It's just so tenuous at the moment that I think, unfortunately, what Trump has done over the past 4 years can't be fixed by Biden in the next 4 years.
Do you think then that Trump should get impeached? I know people are calling for him to get impeached a second time. Do you think that will do anything? Make a difference? Stop him, warn others?
I want him to get impeached because he'll lose his pension and his security service and all these other perks that he gets, like health insurance. So for me, I'm like, yeah, you should be impeached because you shouldn't have those things. You don't deserve them for what you've done to your country and for the insurrection that you rose in the last couple of weeks of your presidency.
I want him to get impeached so he can't run again.
Yeah, me exactly.
I do not want 2024. They're like the rise of Make America Great Again. Absolutely not.
Because it will come back again. That's the thing. So I think, as I said, it's a evolving story. At the time that we're filming and between it when it goes out. But if Mike Pence doesn't enact is it the 25th Amendment? I don't know how many amendments we've got now. I was like, everyone goes about the fifth. I'm like, how many amendments do you guys have?
They got a lot of amendments.
They got a lot of amendments. I think that's the important thing, and that's not to say that another candidate, couldn't go on and win, and that Biden and Kamala might have 4 years in office. But I just think that this is dangerous. I think that you're not supposed to take a position of power and use it to push an agenda. You're supposed to represent party politics. You're supposed to use it to better the environment. And I just feel like he said, he's done more damage than good. He's just pushed his agenda on people.